Hey everyone, and welcome back to Tarik Talk. I'm your host, Tarik Mendes, and today I want to take you with me to another very special place here in Amsterdam, one that feels deeply emotional every time I visit. I was recently at the Van Gogh Museum, and I have to say, being back there really stayed with me. Some museums impress you, others move you. The Van Gogh Museum does something different. It pulls you into a single life, a single mind, and lets you experience the world through that lens. Being in Amsterdam already puts you in a reflective mood, but stepping into the Van Gogh Museum heightens that feeling. The space itself feels quieter, more inward. It's not about spectacle, it's about presence. What makes this museum so powerful is that it's not just a collection of paintings, it's a journey. You're not hopping between artists or movements. You're walking alongside one person, following his thoughts, his struggles, his curiosity, and his intensity. As you move through the galleries, you're guided through the life of Vincent van Gogh in a way that feels intimate and human. The early works immediately set the tone. Darker colors, heavier brushstrokes, scenes of labor and everyday life. You can feel him searching, trying to understand the world and his place in it. What really struck me this time was how clearly you can see his evolution, not just stylistically, but emotionally. As the colors begin to shift, as yellows, blues, and greens start to dominate, you sense a kind of urgency. It feels like he's racing against time, against himself, trying to capture something before it disappears. Standing in front of the paintings, you become very aware of the physicality of his work. The thick paint, the visible brushstrokes. Nothing is polished or distant. Everything feels raw, almost exposed. You're not just looking at an image, you're seeing evidence of movement, of energy, of emotion translated directly onto the canvas. One of the most powerful aspects of the museum is how it incorporates his letters, especially those written to his brother Theo. Reading his words alongside the paintings changes everything. Suddenly, the work isn't abstract or romanticized. It's deeply personal. You hear his doubts, his hopes, his exhaustion, and his desire to keep going, even when things felt impossible. There's a quiet tension that follows you through the museum. You're constantly aware of how much he created in such a short amount of time, and how little recognition he received while he was alive. It adds a layer of gravity to the experience. You're not just admiring art, you're witnessing persistence. Of course, seeing the iconic works in person is unforgettable. Paintings like sunflowers or almond blossom feel completely different when you're standing just feet away from them. The colors vibrate, the textures almost move. Reproductions don't prepare you for that physical presence. But what stayed with me most weren't just the famous pieces. It was the quieter works, the studies, the moments where you can tell he was experimenting, questioning, pushing himself forward. Those paintings feel incredibly honest, like he wasn't trying to impress anyone, only to understand what he was seeing and feeling. The museum itself supports that emotional journey beautifully. The layout is clear, the pacing is thoughtful, and nothing feels rushed. You're encouraged to slow down, to spend time with the work, to sit with it. And that feels rare in a world where we're constantly moving on to the next thing. What I also appreciate is how the Van Gogh Museum avoids mythologizing him too much. Yes, his life was difficult. Yes, there was struggle and pain, but the focus stays on his dedication to the work, his curiosity, his commitment to seeing differently. By the time I reached the final galleries, I felt a strange mix of heaviness and inspiration. Heavy because his story is undeniably intense, but inspired because of how much he created despite everything. It reminds you of the power of continuing even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. Walking back outside into Amsterdam, the city felt slightly different, brighter, sharper, almost like my eyes needed time to readjust. That's the effect this museum has. It subtly shifts how you see the world even after you leave. The Van Gogh Museum isn't just about understanding an artist. It's about understanding vulnerability, persistence, and the need to create. It reminds you that art doesn't come from comfort. It comes from paying attention, from feeling deeply, and from continuing to show up. If you ever find yourself in Amsterdam, I really recommend giving yourself time there. Not to rush through, not to treat it like a checklist, but to experience it slowly and let the work speak to you in its own way. That's it for today's episode of Tarik Talk. Thank you for listening and for spending this time with me. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, share it with someone who loves art, and stay tuned for more stories, reflections, and creative journeys from around the world. A new season is here, and I've got some incredible guests I can't wait to share with you. I'll also be dropping an art guide featuring some of my favorite galleries, museums, art fairs, and artists you should definitely check out. All episodes are now streaming visually on YouTube and Instagram and audibly on Amazon, Google, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and all major streaming platforms. If you haven't already, make sure to follow and subscribe for more art adventures. Thank you to everyone who supported the podcast and to everyone listening in over 160 countries worldwide. To my new listeners and my day ones, I love you. Thank you for being part of this journey through art. Have a guest you think I should interview next? Drop their name in the comments. With hundreds of episodes recorded live in over 10 countries, catch up on previous guests while you wait for the new season to drop. Stay tuned. Ciao.